Wife said, "I'd gladly trade my husband for that tall guy." She pointed at a pool boy. Epic revenge when a wife mocked her husband in front of everyone. Pointing at the pool boy as her better option, she never expected the man she humiliated would rise higher, stronger, and colder than ever. But his revenge wasn't loud. It was devastating. In a wealthy American suburb, Daniel thought he had the perfect marriage until his wife, Ashley, humiliated him at a summer gathering by saying she'd gladly trade him for their tall young pool boy. That single moment shattered his world. But instead of begging, Daniel rebuilt himself. From a broken husband to a ruthless businessman, Daniel plotted a path that would shake Ashley's life to its core. When betrayal met revenge, the pool water wasn't the only thing that ran deep. The summer party, the late July, sun cast golden streaks across the manicured lawns of the suburban mansion. Music pulsed softly from outdoor speakers, and the smell of grilled steak mixed with chlorine from the shimmering blue pool. Neighbors mingled with wine glasses in hand, laughing, gossiping, pretending to be perfect in a neighborhood where image meant everything. Daniel stood near the patio bar nursing a beer he didn't want, wearing a polite smile he didn't feel. He wasn't much of a party guy, but Ashley, his wife of 8 years, thrived in these settings. She loved the attention, the spotlight, the whispers of admiration about her looks, her figure, her effortless charm. And tonight, Ashley was in her element, radiant in a white sundress, diamond earrings glittering under the patio lights, her laughter carrying across the pool like bells. She was the kind of woman people noticed, and Daniel, despite all the years, still couldn't deny she was beautiful. But beauty can turn cruel. The pool boy arrived just after sunset, tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-bleached hair and a careless grin. He wore a simple white t-shirt clinging to his chest, board shorts hanging low, and carried a toolbox. His job was simple: fix the pool lights. But his presence stole the room without effort. Daniel noticed immediately how Ashley's gaze lingered on him. A playful smile tugged at her lips. She whispered something to her friends, and they giggled like teenagers. It started as a small remark. Then it grew into a cruel performance. Someone asked Ashley about her husband, about Daniel's work, his real estate firm, the long hours, the stress. Instead of praising him, she rolled her eyes, and then, with a laugh that sliced sharper than broken glass, she pointed across the pool at the young man kneeling by the waterline. "You know what?" she said loud enough for half the party to hear, her voice laced with alcohol and arrogance. "I'd gladly trade my husband for that tall guy right there." The crowd erupted in laughter. Some laughed awkwardly, unsure if she was serious. Others leaned in, enjoying the scandal. The pool boy chuckled, embarrassed but flattered. Daniel froze. The beer bottle nearly slipped from his hand. His ears rang with the echo of her words. The laughter wasn't background noise anymore. It was a spotlight searing into him. Every eye turned, every whisper burned. His chest tightened, humiliation flooding through him like a wave he couldn't escape. Ashley, oblivious or uncaring, clinked her glass with her friends and added with a smirk, "At least he knows how to handle things. My husband can't even fix a damn light bulb." Another round of laughter. Daniel's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He wanted to storm out. He wanted to shout, to demand respect. But he didn't. Instead, he stood still, his expression unreadable. Inside, though, something cracked. He realized at that moment, in front of their friends, their neighbors, and that smirking pool boy, that the woman he loved didn't just betray him. She humiliated him. She turned his life into a joke. And jokes don't last forever, because sometimes the punchline bites back. As the night went on, Ashley soaked in the attention. The pool boy flashed her a grin as he left, and she returned it, her eyes sparkling with a dangerous kind of interest. Daniel stayed silent, sipping his beer until it was warm and bitter. He said nothing. He smiled politely. But in his chest, something dark and cold began to grow. A promise, a quiet vow. She would regret this, deeply, and when his revenge came, it wouldn't be loud, it would be devastating. The humiliation Daniel didn't sleep that night. The laughter from the party still rang in his ears long after the guests had left, long after the last wine glass was rinsed and stacked in the dishwasher. Ashley had gone to bed without a second thought, humming to herself, scrolling through her phone with that smug little smile that hadn't left her face since the pool boy fixed the lights. But Daniel stayed awake, sitting in his home office, the shadows heavy around him. He replayed the moment over and over, her pointing finger, her words dripping with mockery, the ripple of laughter, the pitiful sympathy in some neighbors' eyes. Humiliation wasn't new to him. Ashley had always had a sharp tongue. She mocked his workaholic tendencies, his thinning hair, the way he dressed conservatively when everyone else seemed so polished. But those insults were private, behind closed doors. Between husband and wife, this was different. This was a wound she wanted the whole world to see. He stared at the framed photos on his desk, vacations, holidays, their wedding day. He remembered how she looked walking down the aisle, radiant, eyes full of promise. And he remembered how he felt chosen, lucky, certain that she loved him. Now. He wondered if she ever did. The sound of her laughter still poisoned his thoughts. I'd gladly trade my husband for that tall guy right there. Those words had stripped him of dignity. At 3 a.m. Daniel finally dragged himself upstairs. Ashley was asleep, phone still in her hand, a faint smile lingering on her lips. He stood in the doorway, watching her chest rise and fall with each peaceful breath. 1,000 emotions raged inside. Him, anger, hurt, betrayal. But there was something else. Clarity. This was the moment everything changed. He could confront her. But what good would that do? She'd laugh it off. Call him sensitive. Accuse him of overreacting. And maybe she'd even twist it around, making him the villain. No. A woman like Ashley didn't fear arguments. She thrived on drama. What she would fear was silence, control, the slow, deliberate unraveling of the comfortable world she thought. She owned, that night, Daniel made a decision. He would stop being the man she could ridicule. He would take his humiliation and turn it into fuel. He would rise higher than she could imagine. And when she finally realized the cost of her words, she would find herself standing on Ash's dock the next morning. Ashley acted as if nothing had happened. She made coffee, flipped through a magazine, scrolled social media. So, are you heading to the office today, or working from home? She asked casually, like she hadn't destroyed him 12 hours ago. Daniel met her gaze and gave her the smallest smile. Office, he said simply. No confrontation, no explosion. Just calm. Ashley raised an eyebrow. You're quiet. Something wrong. He shook his head. Nope, everything's fine. And that unnerved her more than if he had yelled because Daniel wasn't fine. He was changing. Later that day, as he sat in his office at the real estate firm, he stared out the window at the city skyline. He wasn't the man who got humiliated by his wife in front of neighbors. He wasn't the man defined by her careless cruelty. He was a man with power waiting to be claimed. And power, he decided, would be the sharpest weapon for revenge. He picked up his phone, scrolled through his contacts, and made a call. It wasn't to a friend. It wasn't to family. It was to someone who owed him a favor, a wealthy developer in Miami who had once promised Daniel an opportunity too big to ignore. Remember that project you mentioned last year? Daniel asked, his voice calm, steady. The one you said could change everything? I'm ready to talk. When he hung up, his reflection in the office window looked different, stronger, harder. Ashley thought she had embarrassed him into submission, but Daniel wasn't planning to lick his wounds. He was planning to rise Dot, and when he did, she would watch every step of the way, powerless, regretful, and drowning in the humiliation she once enjoyed giving him. The pool boy's smirk. The following Saturday, Daniel returned home earlier than usual. He pulled into the driveway to see the pool boy's truck parked outside. The sun was blazing, the sound of splashing and laughter echoing from the backyard. Daniel walked through the side gate and froze. Ashley was stretched out on a lounge chair in a red bikini, sunglasses perched on her nose, sipping iced tea like she was auditioning for a commercial. Beside her, the tall pool boy. His name was Chase. Daniel remembered was shirtless, glistening with sweat as he skimmed the pool. Ashley laughed at something Chase said, her head tilted back, her toes brushing the concrete flirtatiously. Daniel's stomach tightened. When Chase finally noticed him, he gave Daniel a nod, but it wasn't polite. It was smug. That subtle, knowing smirk Daniel couldn't stand. The kind of smirk that said, "I know your wife prefers me. I know you're the weak one here." Daniel forced himself to remain calm. "How's the pool?" Daniel asked, his voice neutral. "Perfect now," Chase said, wiping sweat from his forehead. His eyes darted toward Ashley, and she rewarded him with a smile that lingered too long. Daniel walked over to his wife, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk." Ashley waved a hand. "Later, Daniel. Don't be so dramatic." Chase was just helping me with the filter. Daniel looked at her, then at Chase, and nodded. "Good job," he said flatly. Chase shrugged and packed up his tools. "See you next week, Mrs. Mitchell." Ashley's smile widened at the sound of Mrs. Mitchell. Daniel noticed every detail. Every MACROEXPRESAON as Chase left. Daniel turned to Ashley. "You think this is funny, don't you?" Ashley took off her sunglasses and sat up, her expression mocking. "Oh, come on, Daniel. Don't be so insecure. He's just a kid. Do you think I'd actually run off with the pool boy?" Daniel stared at her in silence for a long moment. Finally, he said, "No, but you've already done worse." Her smile faltered for half a second, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, stop being dramatic." Daniel didn't argue. He didn't shout. He just walked back inside, and that silence unnerved Ashley more than any fight ever could. Shattered illusions that night. Daniel poured himself a drink and sat in the den, staring at the fireplace. He couldn't stop replaying the years he had invested in Ashley, the early days when they were broke but happy, the nights they stayed up talking about their dreams, the sacrifices he had made to build the life they had now. Ashley had been his anchor once, his reason. But somewhere along the way, that woman had vanished. Now she thrived on attention. She lived for likes on social media, compliments from neighbors, flirtations from strangers. And Daniel had become invisible to her. The illusion of their marriage was shattered. Earlier in their relationship, Daniel had excused her sharp remarks. She was just being playful, he told himself. Later, when the insults turned crueler, he convinced himself she was just stressed. But now she was openly mocking him in public. There was no excuse left. He thought about divorce. The word hovered in his mind like a ghost. But divorce would be too easy for her. Too clean. Ashley needed to understand the weight of her cruelty. She needed to taste what humiliation felt like, not once, but over and over, until it broke her the way she had tried to break him. And the irony was that she'd never see it coming. Daniel's mind sharpened like a blade. He thought of the Miami project, the opportunities he had ignored for years because Ashley wanted him home more. He thought of the money he'd poured into her desires, vacations, jewelry, hosting parties. No more. This time, everything would be different. Ashley believed she had a weak husband, but she was about to meet a man she didn't recognize. Breaking point the following week, Daniel and Ashley attended a neighborhood dinner party at the Parkers. It was a lavish affair with white linens, expensive wine, and the kind of forced laughter that filled every corner of their upscale suburban world. Daniel played his role well, polite, friendly, charming when needed. He even complimented Ashley, something he hadn't done in weeks. She glowed under the attention, not realizing it was part of his act. Then came the moment that pushed Daniel past his breaking point. A neighbor joked about hiring Chase for their own pool. Ashley, with her wine glass raised high, smirked and said, "Careful, he's mine. I'd trade Daniel for him in a heartbeat." The table erupted in laughter. Daniel froze. Again, the humiliation was public, sharp, deliberate. But this time, something inside him didn't just crack, it snapped. He smiled faintly, sipped his wine, and said nothing. Outwardly calm, inwardly seething. When they got home, Ashley slipped off her heels, humming, clearly pleased with herself. Daniel set his keys on the counter and turned to her. "You enjoy this, don't you? Making me your joke?" Ashley rolled her eyes. "Oh, for God's sake, Daniel. Stop acting like a victim. It's just a joke." He stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "No, it's disrespect. And you crossed a line you'll wish you hadn't." For the first time, Ashley hesitated. What's that supposed to mean? Daniel's eyes were cold, unblinking. "It means the man you mocked tonight isn't the man you'll be living with. Much longer. Things are going to change, Ashley. And when they do, you'll understand what humiliation really feels like." Ashley laughed nervously. "Oh, please, you don't have the guts." Daniel didn't answer. He simply turned, walked upstairs, and closed the bedroom door behind him. But inside, his decision was final. This was the breaking point. And Ashley had no idea the storm that was about to descend on her life. The secret plan the following Monday. Daniel sat in his office, staring at the Miami contracts spread across his desk. This wasn't just business anymore. It was personal. For years, Ashley had been the center of his world. Every financial move, every late night, every sacrifice had been made with her in mind. But no more. Now, every step he took was for himself. And for the revenge that simmered in his chest, he picked up the phone and called Marcus Leone, the Miami developer who had been chasing him for months. "Marcus," Daniel said smoothly, "I've decided I'm in. But I'll need full partnership, not just a consultant role." Marcus chuckled. "I wondered when you'd grow teeth, Daniel." "Consider it done. Fly down next week. We'll make history." By the time he hung up, Daniel's pulse thrummed with determination. That night at home, Ashley barely noticed his distraction. She was too busy scrolling through Instagram, liking shirtless photos of fitness trainers and dropping flirty comments on friends' posts. Daniel observed her quietly, filing away every detail. Soon, she would be the one scrolling, desperate, watching him from the outside. The silent treatment. Ashley thrived on drama. She loved arguments, slammed doors, emotional outbursts. They fed her sense of superiority. So when Daniel stopped reacting, it threw her off balance. For days, he barely engaged with her. He answered politely, never cold, but distant. He didn't argue when she insulted him. He didn't flinch when she made cutting remarks. He simply carried himself with quiet composure. Ashley grew restless. One evening at dinner, she set down her fork and studied him. "You've been acting strange lately. What's going on?" Daniel looked up calmly. Nothing's wrong. I just realized some things. Like what? She pressed. He smiled faintly. That I've been wasting my energy. Ashley frowned. On what? Daniel sipped his wine, met her gaze, and said softly, on people who don't deserve it. She blinked, caught off guard. He didn't elaborate. He simply finished his meal and excused himself, for the first time in years. Ashley felt something she wasn't used to feeling toward her husband. Unease, rising again in Miami. Daniel felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. The city buzzed with ambition, heat, and danger. Deals were struck in high-rise offices overlooking the ocean, handshakes sealed over cigars and whiskey. Marcus introduced him to powerful players, investors, developers, politicians. Daniel, once seen as a quiet suburban husband, now projected confidence. His posture was straighter, his voice sharper, his suit tailored. He worked late into the nights, negotiating contracts, securing properties, building alliances. Money began to flow, more than he ever thought possible. He also hit the gym every morning at dawn. At first, it was painful. But soon, the weight room became therapy. Each drop of sweat burned away humiliation. Each set of reps rebuilt him. Piece by piece. By the end of 3 months, Daniel wasn't just back. He was unrecognizable. When he returned home, Ashley barely looked up from her phone when he walked in. So, how was your little business trip? She asked with mocking disinterest. Daniel set down his suitcase and smiled calmly. Productive, very productive. She had no idea just how much. The transformation autumn arrived, and with it came the unveiling of Daniel's new self. At a charity gala downtown, Daniel showed up in a tailored navy suit, his body leaner, stronger. His presence commanded attention in a way it never had before. Heads turned, conversations paused. Even the men noticed Ashley on his arm glowed as usual in her designer gown, but for once she wasn't the star of the night. Daniel was. Women approached him, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm lightly. Investors shook his hand firmly, congratulating him on his Miami deals. Daniel handled it all with ease, his smile confident, his energy magnetic. Ashley watched. Unsettled, she leaned toward him, whispering, "Since when did you become Mr. Popular?" Daniel sipped his drink and replied coolly, "Since I stopped trying to impress the wrong people." Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. That night, Ashley reached for him in bed, but for the first time in their marriage, Daniel turned away. Her frown deepened in the dark. Something was slipping, and she didn't like it. Ashley's curiosity weeks passed, and Ashley grew increasingly restless. Daniel's calm detachment unnerved her more than shouting ever could. He worked late, traveled often, and when he was home, he seemed different, confident, strong, attractive in a way she hadn't noticed in years. Other women noticed, though. At a neighborhood gathering, Ashley caught Mrs. Parker leaning too close to Daniel, laughing at something he said. A spark of jealousy stabbed Ashley's chest. She hated the feeling. She wasn't supposed to be the jealous one. Daniel was supposed to chase her, beg for her attention, endure her sharp remarks because he had no other options. Now it felt like the balance of power had shifted. That night, Ashley confronted him. "You've changed," she said, crossing her arms. Daniel looked at her with calm eyes. "Yes, I have." She tilted her head. "What happened to you?" Daniel smiled faintly, his voice low, deliberate. "I finally remembered my worth." Ashley's heart skipped, though she masked it with a smirk. "Don't get cocky, Daniel. You're still you." But deep down, she wasn't so sure anymore because for the first time, Ashley felt what Daniel had endured for years, insecurity. Temptation reversed. Ashley had always been the flame. Daniel, the moth. But something had changed. Now Daniel was The flame, and she felt the burn dot at another gala. Daniel's presence drew whispers. Women gravitated toward him, their laughter trailing after his every word. Even men respected him differently, treating him like a power player instead of the quiet, forgettable husband. Ashley noticed every glance, every smile, every fleeting touch of manicured fingers on his arm. Her own friends whispered, "Wow, Daniel's really changed." "You're lucky, Ashley." Lucky. The word scraped her nerves raw. Pulled him aside. "Since when do you enjoy being the center of attention?" Daniel's smile was cool, measured. "Since I realized attention can be useful." Ashley narrowed her eyes. Useful for what? He leaned close enough for only her to hear. "For reminding people what they missed when they underestimated me." The words unsettled her, stirring something she couldn't name. Jealousy. Maybe, or fear. For the first time in years, Ashley wanted his attention, and he wasn't giving it. The pool boy's true colors. Ashley's fascination with Chase, the pool boy, had begun as a joke, a cruel jab at Daniel. But lately, she found herself actually texting him. Little things at first, scheduling, questions about pool maintenance. Then emojis. Then flirty comments. Chase, hungry for validation and easy money, played alone. Soon he was lingering after his shifts, drinking iced tea by the pool, letting Ashley's laughter feed his ego. But Chase had no loyalty. He bragged about their texts to his friends. Rumors spread. A few neighbors noticed his truck parked outside. Longer than necessary. Whispers began, whispers Ashley was too blinded to hear. One evening, Daniel returned from Miami early. He found Chase leaning against the kitchen counter, shirtless, sipping lemonade Ashley had poured him. The sight should have shattered him. Instead, Daniel smiled. "Good to see you, Chase," he said smoothly, setting down his briefcase. "Pool lights still working?" Chase shifted, uneasy at Daniel's calm. Yeah, everything's fine." Ashley tried to laugh it off. "Don't be weird, Daniel." Daniel cut her off with a sharp look. "I'm sure he was." And then he walked upstairs, whistling because now the game was playing out exactly as he wanted. Ashley's decline, the rumors spread quickly. First whispered at yoga classes, then over wine at dinner parties. "Did you hear Ashley's been spending time with the pool boy?" "She's reckless. Doesn't she know people are talking?" Ashley noticed the shift, the raised eyebrows, the polite but distant smiles from neighbors who used to fawn over her. She hated it. She tried harder, dressing flashier, laughing louder. posting filtered photos online. But the comments kept coming. Daniel, meanwhile, thrived. His Miami project was featured in a local business magazine. Pictures of him at ribbon cutting circulated, his confident smile drawing admiration. Ashley confronted him one night. "Are you enjoying this? Everyone thinks I'm having an affair." Daniel looked at her with cold detachment. "Are you?" Her cheeks burned. "Of course not." He leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "Doesn't matter. People believe what they want. Maybe now you understand how it feels to be humiliated." Her mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time, Ashley felt powerless. Daniel's silence hurts more. Ashley expected fights. She expected accusations. What she didn't expect was Daniel's silence. He didn't defend her at gatherings when rumors spread. He didn't argue when she snapped at him in frustration. He didn't flinch when she accused him of not caring. Simply watched her unravel, and the silence was torture. One night, after too many glasses of wine, Ashley burst into tears. "Do you even love me anymore?" Daniel studied her with unreadable eyes. "Love doesn't survive humiliation, Ashley." Her breath caught. "So what? You're just done?" He stood, adjusting his cufflinks. No, I'm patient. And patience makes revenge satisfying. She stared at him, shaken. This wasn't the man she mocked anymore. This was someone colder, sharper, untouchable, and it terrified her. The grand reveal winter arrived with glittering lights and holiday parties. At one such event, Daniel made his grandest move yet. He arrived not just as Ashley's husband, but as a powerhouse. His Miami project had exploded into success, drawing national press. Investors surrounded him, praising his brilliance. Women whispered his name with interest. Ashley, on his arm, felt invisible for the first time in her life. Then came the final. Blow Dot Marcus Leone, his Miami partner, raised a glass and toasted to Daniel Mitchell, the man who turned ambition into gold. The future belongs to him. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Daniel stood tall, his smile magnetic. Ashley, standing beside him, forced a smile, but inside, her stomach churned. The man she once mocked as weak, as laughable, now stood above her, admired, respected, untouchable. And she was nothing. More than the fading wife in his shadow. That night, Ashley whispered as they left the gala, "Daniel, I think we should start over." He glanced at her, his smile cold. "Oh, Ashley, you don't get to start over. You only get to watch." Her blood ran cold. Ashley begs. For weeks after the gala, Ashley tried to repair what was left. She cooked dinners she hadn't bothered with in years, bought new lingerie, even suggested a weekend getaway. But Daniel was a wall. Polite, detached, untouchable. One night she broke. She cornered him in their bedroom, tears in her eyes. "Daniel, please. I was stupid. I shouldn't have said those things. I didn't mean them. Can't we just go back to how we were?" Daniel adjusted his tie in the mirror, expression calm. "You want the old Daniel back? The one you could laugh at, belittle, humiliate? That man's gone." Ashley's voice cracked. "I love you. I just didn't realize how much until now." Daniel turned, his eyes sharp. "No, Ashley, you don't love me. You love control, and you lost it." She sank onto the bed, sobbing. But Daniel simply walked out, leaving her in the ruins of her own making. The pool boy dumps her. Ashley, desperate for validation, turned to chase Dot at first. Their flirtations felt like power, but soon the illusion shattered. Chase grew careless. He stopped replying to her texts promptly. He made excuses. And then one afternoon she caught him laughing with another woman by his truck, a woman younger, prettier, free of baggage. When Ashley confronted him, Chase shrugged. "Look, you're fun, but I'm not trying to be your husband. You're married, you're drama, and honestly, you're not worth the mess." The words hit like a slap. Not worth it. For the first time, Ashley tasted her own medicine. The humiliation she had poured onto Daniel now bled into her. Chase drove off without looking back, leaving Ashley standing alone in her driveway as neighbors peeked through curtains. Her prize had abandoned her. Public shamed the annual neighborhood. Christmas party was Ashley's favorite event, a stage where she could shine. This year she walked in alone. Daniel had already arrived, dressed sharp, surrounded by admirers. People whispered about his success, his charm, his transformation. Ashley tried to join him, but he drifted away effortlessly, leaving her in the cold. Then came the whispers. She chased the pool boy, you know. Her husband doesn't even acknowledge her anymore. Sad, really. She used to think she was untouchable. Ashley's cheeks burned as she forced a smile, her champagne glass trembling. Then the final blow came. One of her so-called friends, tipsy from wine, laughed loudly. "Careful, ladies, or Ashley might trade Daniel for your gardener." The room erupted in cruel laughter. Ashley froze. It was the exact kind of laughter she once reveled in. Only now, she was the joke. Her eyes darted to Daniel. He stood across the room, watching, and when their eyes met, he raised his glass in a silent toast, not with warmth, with victory. Final cut 2 months later, the divorce papers arrived. Daniel didn't shout, didn't fight. He simply handed them to her across the marble kitchen island. Ashley's hands trembled. "You're divorcing me?" Daniel's expression was calm, even satisfied. "You made it clear long ago that you didn't value me. Now I'm just giving you what you wanted." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "No, Daniel. I was wrong. Please, I can change." He shook his head. "You can't undo years of disrespect with a few tears. You broke this marriage the night you pointed at that boy and made me your joke." Her sobs filled the kitchen, but Daniel felt nothing. When the divorce was finalized, Daniel walked away with the house, his business empire, and his pride. Ashley walked away with nothing but the hollow echo of her own cruelty. The sweetest revenge spring came, and with it, a new chapter in Daniel's life. His Miami projects flourished. His reputation soared, and women admired him wherever he went. But he wasn't chasing them. He didn't need validation anymore. He had found strength in himself. One afternoon, as he stood on the balcony of his penthouse overlooking the ocean, a thought struck him. Revenge didn't always need fire. Sometimes it needed ice, and he had given Ashley exactly that. He hadn't screamed, hadn't begged, hadn't stooped to her level. He had simply risen, higher, stronger, untouchable. Meanwhile, Ashley had become a ghost in the neighborhood. Once the queen bee, now whispered about as the woman who lost everything. People pitied her, laughed at her, dismissed her. Daniel occasionally saw her at a distance, thinner, worn, her smile brittle. She tried to hide her shame, but her eyes gave her away. She knew. She understood, and that was the sweetest part. Because the best revenge wasn't destroying someone, it was making them live long enough to watch you thrive. Without them, Daniel raised his glass to the setting sun, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Ashley had once laughed at him, humiliated him, called him worthless. Now, he was the man she could never have back, and that truth was his ultimate victory.